Hello readers, I'm the Avid Reader, and today I'm gonna give you 5 reasons of why you should read the Southern Victory series by Harry Turtledove, which was written between 1994 and 2004. And it is an 11-volume series, which is a series about what if the South won the Civil War, and it is in 4 parts. Part 1 is about a war between Americans and Confederates in the 1880s. Part 2 is World War I, the Great War, which is a trilogy, which is a war between the Entente and the Central Powers, but this time the Americans back the Germans and the Confederates back the British and the French. Part 3 is another trilogy, the American Empire trilogy, which is about the interwar period, where you, for example, have the United States occupying Canada, and you also have the development of totalitarianism in the Confederate States. And part 4 is World War II, or the Second Great War, taking place from 1941 to 44, which is basically a replay of the First Great War with the Americans fighting the Confederates. So here are 5 reasons why you should read this book series. Number 1, it is a great allegory to German politics in the Weimar Nazi era. So when you read this book series, especially when you read the American Empire trilogy, you see a lot of parallels between the Confederate States and Germany during the 1920s and 30s and 40s. So you see the rise of anti-black racism in the 1920s and 30s in the Confederate States, and there are a lot of parallels with Germany during this era. So you get to see how discrimination against a certain group escalated. You also get to understand the unstable democratic political situation in the Confederate States during the 1920s, which is similar to the Weimar Republic. And you see how genocidal behavior in this book series is a gradual development, where you first go from concentration camps to shooting people, to putting them in gas trucks, and finally putting them in gas chambers. The second reason you should read the Southern Victory series is that you get to empathize with a large cast of characters. So there are several dozen characters in these book series that you follow throughout multiple books. Some of them die, some of them grow old. You also get to see their children grow old and the different generations. And you get to empathize with the point of view of different people. So you get the point of view of both American and Confederate soldiers. You get the point of view of blacks. You get the point of view of women. You get the point of view of racists, how a racist thinks. And you also get the point of view of a slew of different types of Americans and Confederates. And I really appreciated the character development of Jefferson Pinkard, who starts out as a guy who has decent relations with blacks, but in the end he does some horrible things to blacks. You kind of get to see how the banality of evil works in the Southern Victory series. And I also love the character in this book series called Scipio, who was an educated black guy who was a butler to a plantation, and he's very well read, very smart, he is very well spoken. That's maybe my favorite character throughout that series, but there are many great characters in this book series. The third reason you should read the Southern Victory series is because it's a great war story. So especially in How Few Remain and in the Great War trilogy, there are a lot of great war scenes, cool scenes where soldiers fight with each other, Confederates and Americans and Canadians and Americans and Mormons, and it does not glorify war. You see how brutal it is. You also see the mentality of how a soldier has to think to fight in war. And the best war scenes I've ever read, in my opinion, come from the Southern Victory series, especially from the Great War trilogy. And as there are many perspectives, you get the perspective of different soldiers, officers, and also people who are in the Navy and Air Force, and some generals also. The fourth reason you should read the Southern Victory series is that you kind of understand the causes of terrorism. So in this book series, you have the Mormons who rebel multiple times and then are suppressed. So they start committing terrorist attacks against the Americans. And also when the United States occupies Canada in the American Empire trilogy, then you get Canadians who start committing terrorist attacks, and you also get the perspective of actually a regular Canadian girl and a regular Canadian guy who you see how they develop to become terrorists and why they are terrorists. So if you ever wanted to kind of understand the mentality of a terrorist, then there are elements in this book series that explore that, especially in the later volumes. And the fifth reason you should read this book series is that while it is Harry Turtledove's magnum opus, it is 11 volumes. You can see some of the volumes here, and then some more volumes here. And you basically get an alternate history of the United States from the 1860s in the Civil War up to World War II around 1946 or so. And this is the best work that Harry Turtledove has written in my opinion. The World War series was also good, but this is better in my opinion, I think. I finished this series about 3 years ago and I loved it. This is the series that introduced me to Harry Turtledove and to alternate history. And it is his magnum opus. It's 11 volumes. It's one of his biggest series and there are so many great characters, so many great fight scenes. I love it. I'm probably gonna reread this series someday because it's so great, so amazing. Some of these volumes are really amazing and some of the character development, it's beautiful. If you ever wanted to read an alternate history book series, I definitely recommend the Southern Victory series or the Timeline 191 series. It's in 4 parts, so you can take your time in reading it, but it's definitely worth it in my opinion. I read it over a period of 1.5 years or so. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this series recommendation. I'm the Avid Reader and I will see you readers next time.